Okay, so, hi, hello, welcome back to another Creepypasta story video. Today, Creepypasta that I'm going to be reading was actually suggested by a commenter on the last video, so thank you for the suggestion. Creepypasta is in the back seat. Hopefully this is the correct one. When I went to go out and look for this Creepypasta, I couldn't exactly find... I found different variations of it, so hopefully this is the one. But yeah, before we get into it, I do want to say a couple other things. First off, the video is a one take, so if you do hear me stumble, mumble, fumble, and mess up my words, I am sorry. I don't have any way to really edit my videos, so this is the best I can do. Second thing, if you're interested in pretty much Kool-Aid for adults, go check out gamersubs.gg. Gamersubs is kind of like an energy kind of brand, similar to like Kool-Aid and the powder drinks, all that stuff. They have caffeinated and non-caffeinated versions, and you can go check them out. They have wonderful flavors and new flavors dropping every other month, I do believe, or every couple months. And they have shirt, merchandises, cups, and all of that lovely stuff. So if you go, the link is in the description. If you go check it out and you find something you like, use code GOONS at gamersubs.gg. Gamersubs.gg, that's code GOONS to get 10% off at checkout. Okay, so outside of that, let's get into it. So, this creepypasta is called In the Backseat. This happened to me about 3 years ago, in the March of my senior year of high school. I was 18 and living in a tiny little pit stop of a town just outside a major city in Colorado. I was ready to graduate and get on with my life. Everything was going pretty well for me. I was getting decent grades, I was on a baseball team, I had been accepted into my dream program for college, and I had recently started dating my still girlfriend, Maggie. She and we were, and still are, pretty different. I'm more of a laid-back type, while she's very uptight, and she'd be the first to admit it. I don't mind a bit of chaos, but she likes things to be organized and set in a certain way. I'm two gentlemen of Verona, and she's Macbeth. You get the picture. But I've changed in a certain way since we've been together, and all because of this night. I now believe in beings that are not of this world. I didn't before, since I was a man of strict science and logic. But after this, and many other experiences with her, my mind is now forever changed. Since we first met, she and her family would tell me ghost stories of things that supposedly happened to them. The first time, it was her grandma telling me about the time she found Maggie sitting on the stairs in the middle of the night, talking to air, as if it was an old friend. At first, I thought it was a joke, but I was very seriously regaled by her family with the tales of the creepy occurrences that seemed to surround her. She apparently was followed by an unexplained wherever she went. I just nodded along and secretly thinking that they were just exaggerating. But now I know that they weren't. Enough with the ado, I'll just get into it. So, like I mentioned, we live in a very small town about 30 minutes outside of the city. There are two ways to go from one to the other. Either use the highway or use the back roads. The back roads are narrow, gravel paths that go through the more rural parts of the state. There's no lighting aside from the occasional farm driveway, but they're usually faster and far less crowded and have much smaller police presence, which is handy when you had a brew or two. We were going to a party in the city that night, and since we pre-gamed at my friend's place in town, we decided to take the back roads just in case. We stayed for a few hours in the city, and I admittedly had few too many. Thankfully, Maggie, who only had one seltzer, offered us to drive back to town in my car. So off we went. At around 3 in the morning, I was dozing off, but felt suddenly awake when she pulled into the back roads. She turned off the radio, and I knew it because she was so nervous. She has some driving nerves to begin with, and especially at night. She was clearly getting a little anxious, and I watched her adjust the rear view mirror and shift in her seat, glancing back in the mirror every few seconds. I held her hand for support as we slipped away from the city, with the light disappearing and leaving us in total blackness, save for the high beams. We were about halfway between the town and the city in the absolute thick of rural Colorado, when she asked me in a very quiet, very tight voice, "Did you ever go to church?" I told her, as a kid. I knew that her family was very anti-religious, but I wonder why she was asking me this now. My parents didn't make me go after I made my confirmation. Do you remember any prayers? Some? Why? Can you say some out loud, please, Sam? What's going on? Just start fucking praying, Sam, please. She was squeezing my hand so hard I thought I might burst. She was paper white, looking like she was just on the verge of tears. I had never seen her or anyone so profoundly frightened. Her outburst alarmed me, and I sat up straight, trying my best to remember Our Father. I couldn't remember any other prayers in my tired, drunk state, so at her insistence, I repeated it maybe 3 or 4 times. After that, she pulled over onto the grass and stopped the car, and then burst into tears. I did my best to comfort her, but it was difficult considering she wouldn't tell me anything about what had upset her. After a while, she was able to calm down and continue driving, but for the rest of the night, she was very obviously uncomfortable. We decided to crash at my older sister's place, and the next morning, after I have thrown up and been fed gravel and a plain bagel, the night started coming back to me. As Maggie sat next to me on the bed, I turned to her and asked her what I had been wondering. Hey, I don't want to upset you again, but what happened last night in the car? She looked at me with slightly bemused eyes. You never believed me. Try me. She took a deep breath and set her phone down. She wouldn't look at me when she spoke. I started getting this awful feeling as soon as we got on the back roads. It was like this dread in the pit of my stomach, like the most intense feeling of impending doom I have ever felt. I felt like I was going to die. I kept driving, and as soon as we were in the pitch black, I looked into the rear view mirror. I waited for her to say more, but she just stared at her lap. Is that all? She shook her head. She shook her head slowly, and I could tell she was getting overwhelmed again. When I looked in the rearview mirror, I saw someone in the back seat. I have told you before, I am not one easy to scare. But when she said this, every single hair on my body stood on end. I knew the fear I was feeling had something to do with whoever was back there. I could sense it. It was dangerous, and I could just tell it wanted to hurt us. I didn't know what to do, and the only thing that made me sense was to pray. But I never prayed before. You finished the prayer, and I looked back in the mirror, and it was gone. Sam, whatever that was, wasn't human. And whatever that was, it was straight from hell. After a lifetime of being a non-believer, I still don't know why this singular incident changed me. Maybe it was how sincerely scared she was, both in the moment and even telling me afterwards. Maybe it was how out of the blue it was. Whatever the case may be, I believe her 100%. Every night before I fall asleep, I hold her hand, I say a prayer, and hope that's enough to keep whoever was in the car away for good. Okay, so that was it for the in the back seat. Hope you all enjoyed this narration of In the Back Seat. It's my first time ever hearing this creepypasta, so I do want to say thank you so much for the person that commented to check out the story. It was really good. I enjoyed it, so thank you. If you have any suggestions, leave them down below, and I'll get to them. So I do want to say thank you guys so much for watching. Everything I mentioned in the beginning, go check them out. Game subs and all that's link is in the description. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. So I do want to say thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Bye, everyone.